In this video, we want to look at circle of Willis. So, it's also called as circulus arteriosus. Basically, it comes in blood supply of brain. Blood supply of brain can, if they ask you, you'll have to write about artery, vein, everything. But here we are looking only at the circle of Willis. Okay, circle of Willis. So the circle of Willis, if they ask you what it is made up of, high level you can say that it is this entire thing is formed by internal carotid artery and the vertebral artery branches. Okay, this part of it is coming from the vertebral artery. Okay, actually the vertebral artery, here you can write a V here. This is vertebral artery, then it becomes basilar artery. From the basilar artery you get the posterior cerebral artery, which is forming the backside of your circle of Willis. Okay, so circle of Willis, it's not Will, okay, it is Willis. It is, okay, circle of Willis. So what and all will form it? The cerebral arteries are actually forming your circle of Willis. The anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery and posterior. Anterior, posterior, middle, you have one middle cerebral artery. This is what, with the communicating arteries, forms the circle of Willis. Very good. So if somebody asks you which are the two main systems which are giving you the circle of Willis, what will you say? It is the internal carotid artery and then you have the basilar artery from the vertebral artery. Okay. Basilar artery from the vertebral artery. So these are the ones that are giving. What exactly is forming this circle of Willis? If somebody asks, you will say anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery and posterior cerebral artery with the communicating arteries, that is the anterior communicating artery and the posterior communicating artery forms the circle of Willis. Here you can see that all these are the cerebral arteries. They are. Cerebellar is coming here, superior cerebellar, inferior cerebellar, in that you have anterior and posterior. Okay, superior and inferior. In inferior again you have anterior and posterior. So these mostly are all cerebellar are all coming from the vertebral artery, the basilar artery you can say. Okay, the basilar and the vertebral artery is giving the cerebellar part. Cerebral part mostly is coming from the internal carotid artery. Now let us try to draw the cerebral, the circle of Willis. Are you ready to draw? Okay, very good. So now let us draw. So here you have the circle, right? Circle, you have the anterior cerebral. In the middle you have the anterior communicating. Middle cerebral, posterior cerebral. Okay. So the one connecting the middle and posterior, this is called as posterior communicating artery. Okay. So you have the posterior communicating artery between these two, and here you have the anterior communicating artery. Okay. So all these are what? Cerebral. Very good. Now coming here, vertebral, draw a V here. Vertebral is becoming basilar and coming here. Okay, so this is what? Vertebral artery here. And here you have the basilar artery, which I think you know. Now from here you'll have to draw what and all? The cerebellar. So posterior cerebellar. Superior cerebellar. Superior cerebellar over. Now inferior. In inferior you have anterior and posterior. So anterior inferior cerebellar artery, posterior inferior cerebellar artery, and what was it here? This was the superior cerebellar artery. Okay. So does it look like a man with two horns? Yes, you have to draw this, okay, in the exam. So a man here with two hands, which are, let's say 4 hands. Posterior cerebral artery, superior cerebellar artery, basilar artery is his body. Then you have the vertebral artery, which is forming his legs. Here you can see. And from this vertebral artery, you get this basilar artery, and you also get this anterior inferior cerebellar artery, posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Okay, all these are bellar arteries. Okay, so let's just look at this again. So where do you have the cerebral arteries? See here, cerebral. Then you have the cerebellar. In cerebellar you have superior and inferior, and in cerebral what did you have? Anterior and posterior. Correct? Again under this many varieties. Okay. So will you be able to draw this diagram in the exam? It's very simplified form of it. So in this diagram now, can you spot the internal carotid artery? Yes, internal carotid artery is here. Very good. Do you want a better color? Internal carotid artery is here. Yes, very good. Where is the vertebral artery? V shape. Yeah, here. This is the vertebral artery. Very good. Where is the basilar artery? Here. Basilar artery. Very good. Where is the posterior cerebral? Posterior cerebral. Where is the posterior cerebellar? Sorry, superior cerebellar. Superior cerebellar. Then, this is also superior cerebellar. Very good. Where is the anterior cerebral? Anterior cerebral. Middle cerebral? Middle cerebral. Very good. In this, you can see how those superior cerebellar they have shown here. See? Superior cerebellar, inferior cerebellar. In that inferior cerebellar, you have the anterior and the posterior. So, in the inferior, you have the anterior and the posterior. Okay. So, did you understand, people? Or the circle of Willis, you will be able to draw in the exam, right?